Good morning and welcome to the new edition of Live Comments. In our last week, we had discussed the performance of Modi and Trudeau, the two prime ministers that we are actually involved in, and we found that Modi did outshine Trudeau. But there was another speaker, the valedictory speaker, the speaker who practically brought Davos meeting to an end. And the way he talked, it sounded that he was blowing his own trumpet, which was great. Modi talked of the dangers to the world, and Trump continued that thing. And it was very clear the way Modi was, that he had come to represent American people and also to affirm that America is committed to global growth, a better word for everybody. But there has been a situation when his concept of being America first is misunderstood. He clarified that when he means America first, he does not mean America alone. Of course. And here is, I think, for the first time, a leader saying what is reality. Every president and the prime minister's first concern should be his own country. But by putting a value on your own country, you don't devalue others. If Trump is saying America first, let China say China first, which they are doing. The only thing is he is vocal and others are not. He talked about the fulfillment of his promises, how he had created 2.4 million jobs, and the small business optimism was at the highest. He talked about his tax reform, how the corporate tax has been cut from 35% to 21%. And as a result thereof, hundreds of the companies, Walmart and others, have given bonuses and higher pays to their employees. And some companies, employees in some companies have received as high as $3,000. Secondly, Apple said that they will bring home $245 billion to America from outside America. And then they are going to have another investment of $350 billion. So one company alone is giving back more than $600 billion to the country. What more can a country need? And he was welcome. Then he talked about the global trade. I was quite impressed by him when he said, I'm for the free trade, but the free trade should be fair and reciprocal. The balance of payments has to be balanced. It cannot be favorable to one and unfavorable to the other. And his statement that we cannot have a free and open trade if some countries exploit the system at the expense of others. China, for example, is continuously devaluing its own currency so that the products of China appear to be cheaper, which they are. And when the people find the products are cheaper, this currency manipulation is what he objects, not to the duties. So when it's there, it's incumbent on the host country to levy duties. And that's what's happening. And then he talked of security. He was very clear that he wants to make the world free from rogue states, from terrorism, and from revisionist powers. By revisionist powers, he meant Russia, China, rogue regimes like Pakistan, Qatar, terrorism like Iran, and others. And for the first time, he talked about how they could maneuver Security Council to have a unanimous resolution against North America. You see, another thing is, everybody says America is made of immigrants, right? There's no denying the fact, but the situation has changed. And he wants the current system of migration to be changed. It should be merit-based. It should be based on what a country needs. And the extended chain family system, one man comes, then he sponsors not only his close family, but cousins and uncles and nephews and aunts and whatnot. So that is what he wants to finish off. And he wants people who want to contribute to the economy, who can support themselves financially and do not want welfare and want to strengthen the country economically and otherwise. You know, it looked to me that the first victory of Trump was when he entered Washington as president-elect. Nobody believed that Trump would win. And then, you know, when he was going to Davos, everybody thought that he'll be shunned. It didn't happen. As a matter of fact, for the first time, possibly, nobody criticized him except two persons. One was, of course, German Chancellor Merkel, when she said, we don't want to build walls, but forgetting that her own country has built barriers around the border. Now, Trump's debut appearance at the World Economic Forum had made some critics speculate that he would function as a protectionist and a free trade loving China shop, because Davos is all for free trade. But the reality television one, who rode a wave of nationalism to the White House, blew up the trade deals, inflamed his friends even. But when he was there, he was the very picture of respectability and common sense. There were some scattered protests, but everybody, practically all the businesses especially, welcomed him, and there was a craze to go and meet him. 15 CEOs have committed to invest in USA, and that is something great. It was very polite, and Charles Schwab, the chairman, he very clearly said that the president has cleared misconceptions and the biased interpretation. Trump stopped to chat to a delegate waving a copy of God and Donald Trump by Stephen Sting. And that appears to be true. He is the God, and as many people appear God. God means protector, nothing more than that. Now, another thing was very clear, that why is it that Modi was the inaugural speaker and Trump was the valedictory speaker? Both represent new thoughts. Modi broke with the tradition of 70 years of philosophy, the Nehruvian philosophy, broke all the protocols, welcomed Israel, and was open about saying that, okay, we will retaliate with force in case our country is invaded. He was vocal enough to present the concept of wealth and wellness, inclusiveness, and of saying that the rogue countries must be stopped. He came from a country which is plagued by terrorism, and that terrorism which is partly homegrown and partly prompted from outside. Trump, breaking the tradition of the normal presidents of the last 40 4 presidents of being politically correct, made open moves and implemented the decision to move the embassy from Tel Aviv to Jerusalem. Now here the two leaders, one Prime Minister of India and the President of USA, they had identical approach. Both had the identical approach to terrorism. Both had identical approach to fair trade. Of course, Modi was talking more in the language of Davos people, globalization, internationalization. But nowhere would he compromise if the interests of India are threatened in any way. And then both talk of security. So there's a convergence of ideas, and who's the net gainer in this? The net gainer from Davos is a country which didn't speak at all. That's Israel. All the cobwebs against Israel were washed off by the presence of Netanyahu and his individual meeting with Trump and the press conference thereafter. The point is that both people representing different type of people, and incidentally, both belong to the countries which are multicultural and multi-religious based. Both are freedom-loving countries. Both are democratic countries. So there was a synergy in the inaugural speech and the valedictory speech. There was another factor which people forget often. That they say that the Modi was talking of globalization. Don't forget, for the first time in the history of Davos was somebody speaking in a language other than English or French. These are normally the lingua franca over there. And Modi talked in Hindi all the time. Of course, arrangements were there for simultaneous translation into the 2 other languages, including Spanish. But nobody expected that, except the organizers who had to arrange for the multi-language translation. So the streak of which Trump talked about when he talked of the America First was clearly indicated by Modi in the use of medium that he exercised, the use of Hindi. So both are staunch nationalists with an international outlook. And as I was talking to some friends, and one friend told me, who was at Davos, that they came to Davos. Not only did they come to Davos, but they made Davos better. They lent its strength, at no time compromising with the basic principles, at no time diluting their stance, but explained it to the people who had some doubts about both the leaders. People are even now questioning Modi and the rise of Hindutva. That is undeniable. But the way actions are being taken, and hopefully further actions will be taken, this might be a passing phase. You know, when you crush a majority of the country for a long time and keep on promoting the minorities, this has happened in USA and this is happening in India. So then there is always, when there's a bit of freedom, a resurgence. The steam has to be let off. But after that, things come back to normal. And when they come back to normal, then they are better. Incidentally, when George Soros, the billionaire liberal who is anti-Trump and had said that Trump is a temporary phenomenon, he was asked. And he responded that if Trump continues the way he's doing, he would be there at least for the 8 years, the 2 terms. Denmark's finance minister Christian Jensen said that Trump's address seemed to be ordinary and some of a sales talk, but after thinking about it and rereading it, she found it to be a declaration of freedom and a new world order. Both these countries, India and USA, have promises to keep, promises to make this world more safe, more full of happiness, wellness and wealth, removal of gender inequality, removal of income inequality, and inclusiveness. The leader gave a message. Now let's see whether these messages are translated into reality or not. But Davos, which was inaugurated by the roar of a tiger, ended with a clear trumpet being blown, the trumpet for the revival or for the coming of a better age. Hopefully, let's see how the things peter out. Thank you.